Hello everyone, this is Diane and my desk is covered with fairy projects. These are all done. I have finished them. They are ready to go in the shop. This one is reserved, so I'm going to be putting that in the shop for the person who reserved it, along with a bag of some leftover pieces. I just wanted to show that I added this little bead dangle decoration onto a copper bulldog clip. And then I finished these. This one is going to be in the shop, and this one is going to be in the shop. These two, this one is reserved for my friend Manon, who requested it, and I think it was Manon. This one is for the drawing. So Wednesday, that's tomorrow, we'll know the winner of this journal. Each journal will come with a bag of pieces. Some of it is the cut-off pieces with the spray on them. Well, that one was blank, but most of them have the spray on them. You can make all kinds of embellishments with them. Some journal cards, some little bits of fabric, and some little pieces of ephemera will be included with each journal. And I'm going to be selling a little kit of some leftover pieces also. So you can stay tuned for that. I'll show that at the end of the video. Alright, so I'm trying to remember what I said. This one is going in the shop. Okay, this is a purple one in the shop. There's a bead dangle. I use these, let me change the angle of that. These colored ball chain, and I just put these little charms on it. There's a jingle bell on each one and a little silver ball, and this one has a pink bead on it. And here is the beautiful fabric. I added a little piece of lace here and some lace down the side. And, oh, I can't remember exactly. I think there were 13 pages folded. And I put this book plate on there. On the front, it has a page from a vintage children's book, and there's a poem about the fairy folk, or a partial poem. And this cutout I fussy cut from the paper doll book, the Flower Fairy paper doll book. There's ledger paper, there's yellow copy paper. Here's a page from a music book called Fairy Bell. And there's a fabric flip here with vintage lace and vintage doily. I sprayed through a paper doily to get this effect. There's some vellum with some flowers and butterflies. Here's a page from I think it's a childcraft book, and it's A Fairy Went A-Marketing. There's a little poem there. There's a piece of wallpaper border with fairies on it. There's a vellum pocket, pale pink vellum with the Mrs. Coggs image here, and some vintage daisy trim in pretty colors. And this is a Mrs. Cogg word. And I cut this from a scrap of Graphic 45 Once Upon a Springtime paper. And this is Mrs. Coggs, and I sewed it to lined paper, and this is Mrs. Coggs. Mrs. Coggs has several different fairy kits. There's some silver embossing up there. There's vintage music paper with yellow doily sewn on it, little Graphic 45 fairy stamp, and a Mrs. Coggs image. And again, some of them I printed on cardstock and I didn't do anything to them. Some were printed on thin paper, so I sewed them to backing paper. There's a piece of vintage stationery with some flowers on it. And this came from a book of Regency ladies' flower paintings. And I realized that Mrs. Coggs has these images in her shop, and I have them. I bought them, or she gave them to me. I can't remember which. But they're called, oh, I can't remember. Whatever her title is. She's not a duchess, but like the Duchess's Berries or something, but she's not a duchess. Well, I forgot what her title was. But these images are, you can get them from Mrs. Coggs. But this was in a book that I had. And I sewed fairy lace and one of the pieces of vintage daisy trim there. This is vintage filet crochet with another of the daisies. There's the other side of that vintage stationery. So pretty. Here's one of the fabric clusters that I made with some embroidery on white quilt. This was part of a baby quilt. And some lace, little snippets of pieces, and a vintage applique. And this can be a tuck spot if you'd like it to be. This is from a vintage children's book. Look at all those little fairies. They're so cute. And I tucked in one of the Flower Fairy postcards that I have, but they were big and I had to trim them down to fit in this book. So it doesn't say postcard on it, but you can write on the back. And this is a leftover piece from the Graphic 45, Once Upon a Springtime. And the other side of the wallpaper, the vellum. There's some more silver embossing with that really funky flower. Another little vellum pocket, Mrs. Coggs image, and this came from a different fairy kit from Cameo. Jeepers, I'm terrible. I don't know. But as I was setting up my new printer, I was trying to organize my images and I found this fairy kit. I was looking to see what Mrs. Coggs images I had. So I've got to organize things into folders so that all the fairy stuff is in one folder. So I will have to make some more fairy journals at some point. Not right away. I've got other projects waiting. But I have this fairy kit that I want to use. All I did was print some of the tags from it. Calico Collage, I think that's what it is. I think. And then on the back, there's a guest check, a little piece of silver doily, and one of the dragons that I painted. There's a lace pocket on the back, whimsical looking. And I included this little bag with a paper doll. Now, I had a book of Flower Fairy paper dolls. And there were 2 boys and 2 girls, and I put them in these little bags, and then I distributed them without looking. So I don't even know which book has boys and which book has girls. But now we know this one has the girl, one of the girls, and they each have 2 costumes. And they're front and back. And it opens like that. You can put it over her head, and so it's front and back. So that's really cool. And that's the Poppy Fairy costume. So they're really cute. And there may be a little accessory piece too. This has her stand and 2 purses made out of flower petals. So this is going to be in my shop as purple fabric fairy journal. And of course it's tied with this pretty ribbon. Now this one will also be in the shop, and this one is the pink fabric fairy journal. You can see the beads on there. This bead was made by my friend Jill. Some pretty trim there. and the lace on the edge has some pink in it. It's tied with a pink ribbon. And this is a stamped book plate. I believe someone sent that to me. I don't have that stamp, and I don't think that I borrowed the stamp and stamped it. I've had it for a long time. I think somebody sent it to me. So here we have another page from a vintage book, and it has part of a poem called The Fairy Folk. And this piece was from the Paper Dolls. And there's a punch out that I did with the graphic 45 paper and some other silver foiled doily. All the same papers are in there. I didn't have another vintage music sheet about fairies, but this is a printable, and it says Moonlight and Fairies, and I stenciled on the back. There's a pretty fabric flip with a little flower fairy on it. Matches the cover. Some vellum, pink vellum with some flowers and some script. A book page from Childcraft. The little elf, the elf and the dormouse. Some wallpaper border. The pink vellum pocket with a Mrs. Cog image, and the daisies, these are in white. A tag, and this one has a bat. I know that the Regency ladies' paintings had a fairy riding a bat. There's the foil or the silver embossing. This one has a pink doily. Vintage stationery in blue. This one has painting on the front and back of this Regency lady page. Love that. Filet crochet. There's a little cluster. It's all vintage. Every piece on there is vintage. There's a bookmark. Now this was cut from the Paper Doll book also. It was one of the decorations on the pages. I fussy cut it and then glued it to acrylic acetate to make a pocket. And there's one of the postcards that I had to cut down a little bit. There's a funky flower. There's lots of journaling space. And there's one of my painted dragons. I have these stamps, so I stamped it and then painted it. Let's see what the paper doll is for this one. This one has a little boy. He's so cute. His two outfits. That one looks more like a bird than a flower. Oh, there's flowers here. And his stand. And this is a little wreath to put on his head. Oops, sorry. I thought it went well with that, so I gave it to him. Okay, those are the two in the shop. All right. Now this one is going to be for the giveaway. And by the time you see this video, the giveaway will have already happened. The drawing will have happened. So I'll just flip through this quickly. This one has pansies on it, this vellum piece. Vintage stationery. There's the cluster. I stamped the word fairies. on that piece of linen. The embroidered X's were already there. And this one has the other girl in it. The pretty yellow, looks like a tulip dress with butterfly wings, or fairy wings. And I don't know what kind of flower that is, just white. And her stand. Oh, it fell out. She has a purse to go with this dress. Well, it could go with either one. It's white. Oh, there's a yellow tulip to go with this dress. And this pocket is made out of this embroidered fabric. It's machine embroidered, but it's vintage. And then lastly, this one was reserved. Look at that pretty bead. I believe that came off a necklace that I got at a flea market and took apart. And I love this old trim. It's sheer, like organza type of fabric with pink rosebuds embroidered, and then the scalloped edge is embroidered in pink. I love that. Here we have the little boy that I cut from the paper doll book. Fussy cut him out and glued him on with a silver doily and then a poem about fairies from a vintage book. This is from a calendar page. So I covered the back of the calendar page with a collage of assorted lined papers for journaling. This is vellum that has, looks like petals in the paper. There will be extra cards in the pack that I send along. This one has a lavender doily. And there's the cluster. This was also cut from the paper doll book. And then the paper doll in here is this charming little boy. Looks like an oak leaf or something. Maple? No, it's not maple. I was thinking that these were... Anyway, I don't know what kind of flower that is. Maybe a daffodil. And his stand. Oh, that's all he has. The boys didn't have purses to go with their costumes. So now I'd like to show you the leftover bits that are going to be in a little fairy journal kit so that you can use them to make a journal. can't. It's not a lot here, but it's a lot of fun stuff that you can use in addition to whatever papers and things and book covers. So these are just additions to what you might have to make a fairy journal with. I'm going to send along the remaining doily that I used as a stencil and didn't get into a book. So you can tear this apart and use it in collage, or you could put it in as a page if your book is big enough. I have this frame from the Once Upon a Springtime. This is large, so you might want to cut that down too if your book isn't that big. The leftover fabric pieces, there's some purple and some pink. Someone had asked me if I might have fabric left over, and I said I didn't think I would, but I do. So I'm just putting it in this kit. I don't want to sell it separately. It's just going to go in that kit. Little bits of vellum in light purple and light pink. Some colored doilies. The stamp image that I stamped and didn't color. You could spray that. This stays on ink, so you could spray it and it won't smear the ink. So I think what I would do if I was going to use this, I would spray it or color it somehow where I'm not coloring in all of the details, but that's up to you. Here's another, whoops, I cut it this way. It's another piece from the Paper Doll book. A couple of bookmarks, 3 of them. And then some lace pieces. I've got this pink sheer ribbon, mint green satin ribbon, a lavender satin ribbon, this fringe trim, which was really fun to use as just little embellishments on the some of the pockets and the clusters I used. Piece of lace, wide lace, and then this one with the pink, and this piece of lace. And this one has a white eyelet with blue satin ribbon, pale blue. Another piece of lace, and this ribbon, rose trim that you could glue on, and some pink gimp. And this piece of embroidery from that baby quilt. And then I am including this pin with a fairy on it. It's a, what do you call those pins? Anyway, you can see what it is. Okay, so that's just going to be the fairy ephemera bundle. Alright, so thanks for watching. Thanks for coming along on this journey. These are the items that will be in the shop. The fairy bundle, the purple, and the pink fairy journals. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back again with another project. I can't wait to get started on the next one. I already know what it's going to be. So come on back and you'll find out too. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.